Vulture Culture, and this is the Retroaktiv MPG-50 Mark II programmer for the Roland Alpha Juno 1, 2, and the MKS-50, which is the rack mount unit, all from 1985. The Alpha Junos are Roland's continuation of the famous Juno 660 and 106 series, and they sort of have a bad rep because they didn't come shipped with all the faders and everything that you had on the Juno 106. So Retroaktiv came along and made these awesome programmers that open up all of the functionality of the Juno 106, or I'm sorry, of the Alpha Juno, make it like a Juno 106 and that everything is one knob per function, but you also have a bunch of other really cool features that you get with it. A couple of the things I always mention is the patch generator is incredible, because what it does is it automatically uses random numbers to create patches within a certain category of sound, which is super, super cool. You can also use this for multi-unit control, meaning you could hook this up to 2 Junos, or maybe like what I have, an Alpha Juno 2, and then also a rack mount unit, and create like a super Juno where you've got, you could either do binaurally, like left and right units that have differences, so it's like super wide, or you could use it more like a JX10 where you've got one unit doing one type of sound and the other unit doing something else, and all of that can be saved as patches in here, so it can save multiple patches to one setup for multiple units, which is very, very cool. And some real quick things about the Alpha Juno. You can hear that it has aftertouch response, which is super cool, and something that the Juno 106 does not have. And hey, how's it going? Rob's here. So Rob Courier is the creator of the Retroaktiv, and I just want to confirm there that is the camera refresh rate. It is not blinking to my eyes. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the nature of doing a 30 frames per second stream on the internet, is sometimes you don't always get the LED screens to line up with the refresh rate. So, but I can guarantee you that in person it doesn't blink at all. How's it going, Rob? Good to see you. Rob Courier started this company, and it's based out of Sebago Lake, Maine, and they make these incredible products. Super awesome to have you here tonight. The thing about the Juno is that for whatever reason, it's not considered like as legendary as something like the Juno 106, but it actually has the same filter, the IR3R05 filter that's in the JX8P and the JX10, and it's got many more features or things you can do with this synthesizer that aren't possible with the Juno 106. So one of them is velocity. So you can hear, if I play a note quietly, you get kind of a warmer sound, and if I strike the notes hard, so you've got velocity control. A lot of people don't realize that the Juno 106 and its predecessors did not have velocity. It's also got aftertouch, so depending on how hard you strike the keys after you've pressed them, you can control things like the filter and volume with aftertouch. That's very easy to do. You've got just these touch sliders right here that control that. Another couple of things that make this synth really interesting is on this sound, for instance, I'm actually using pulse width modulation on the sawtooth wave. So the only other synth that I know that can do that is the AX60 analog synth, anyways, vintage synthesizer from the 80s. And that is a game changer when it comes to a single oscillator per voice plus sub synthesizer to be able to use PWM, because it sort of creates that lush detuned sound that you would get from two separate oscillators. You have a total of 14 wave shapes between the sawtooth and the square shape here, and the sub-oscillator can be different wave shapes too, which is just crazy. It's so much more than you get on a Juno 106. The key bed is amazing. I believe it's the same one on the Roland D50, which is my favorite of the Roland key beds. You can do filter tracking. You've got this 7-stage envelope, just like on the Roland D50, and a fully variable chorus, which is super awesome as well. So yes, there is a lot to cover with this, but I wanted to start the stream off real quick, actually just going to patch gen, and then you can select different categories here, and we could put it on fully random, but it's a lot more fun to actually use the categories that Rob's come up with. And we can just start on bass real quick. All we do is hit enter, and it generates a patch that's confined to sort of sounding in the realm of a bass patch. So let's see what we got. It's really good, really bassy. We could try that again. It's sort of like a resonance thing. Now we've got a new patch. Now these are not just, you know, patches stored on the MPG-50, although it does come with Espencraft's patches, but these are actually just random every time you press them, and they're wonderful starting points. We can try another one. Almost like a vowely Reese sound. We can keep going here. Love the little clicky bass action. Super cool. We could go through the polysynth category. This is something I'm a big fan of. Jim, what's up? Welcome. Can I get some scum in the chat for Jim? That's a totally unique sound. Let's keep going. Thank you, Autumn, and sorry to hear you're sick, my friend. So this is a good example, too, to point out the fact that although you might hear different things, this is an entirely analog synth, uses digitally controlled filters, just like the Juno 106, and what that means is that the tuning of the filter is digitally controlled, but it is a completely analog synth. The filter is analog and the oscillators are analog, and it sounds great. It's got also a fully variable analog chorus, which makes a big part of the sound. And I think that sound we just heard really shows off that this is an analog synth, sort of a famous Juno sound. Oh, this one's great too. Really beautiful sort of sounds. Any ARPs? No, I'm not going to be playing any ARPs tonight, although you can run any sequencer into the MIDI in of this. I think you guys can see that there. And actually, you know, control this synth just with any sort of arpeggiator or sequencer you'd like. Oh, this one's good. Super cool. Why don't we move over to maybe my favorite category of all, pads. Nobody wants any weak pads up in this house. Oh yeah. You can hear that velocity is playing a part in how this filter reacts. Very resonant, beautiful sound, just awesome. Some people say that the oscillator can be digital. There's not one source where the original circuit of the analog oscillator is in alpha, so it could be a digital oscillator. I don't believe that's true. I actually looked into this rumor once because there was something about saying that the Alpha Juno was a numerically controlled oscillator, and I have not. Yeah, so the Kwai K4 is absolutely a digital synth. The Alpha Juno is an analog synth, for sure. I would love to, if anybody in the comments ever finds a decent source that says otherwise, I would listen, but I don't think that's the case. So we'll just generate a new tone. That one was really good. It's almost like an organ type sound. Let's keep going here. You can see too, I want to just point this out, you're not stuck with this. I can change, I believe the high pass was used in that, so if I want to thicken it up a bit and I want to bring it in, we can really make this more of a ballsy sound. Very quickly, just by a couple of strokes. 40 Thieves, welcome to the stream. How's it going? You just got the Kiwi Technics put in the Alpha Juno 2 today. Haven't gotten the chance to play with it yet. I can't wait to hear how that is. You know, I'm always interested in the mods. I haven't modded any of my synths myself. I know the AX60 could benefit from a Tontech mod. Shoutouts to Luftrum too for buying me this luau beer. You a real homie. So yeah, I think that this thing is so crazy. I always wish the Alpha Juno were 2 DCOs per voice. JX3P. Right to the left of this, I actually happen to have the PG2K, which is the retroactive controller for the JX3P, which is 2 DCO per voice, which is awesome. And I think also another underrated synth. However, this synth has a crazy amount of power in there. And so we're going to keep going here. We've got percussion, so we can actually use this to create like techno percussion sounds. Really cool. I really need to sample some of these because it's crazy what kind of sounds you can get. Let's keep going here. That one would be good in an ARP. Oh man. Nice little noise hi-hat. Moving on to the dance category. This is where we're going to get those famous vacuum cleaner sounds created by Eric Persing. So for those of you guys who don't know, the Alpha Juno 1, 2, and MKS-50 all have patches created by Eric Persing and Adrian Scott, the same duo who did the patches for the Roland D50. And Eric Persing, as he went into making, I believe, the JV1080 line, Roland was like, hey, people are asking for a lot of hoover synth sounds, so could you make some more hoover sounds for the 1080? And he was like, sure, what the fuck is a hoover sound? And he started researching it and realized that the hoover sound was his sound. He made the What the preset on the Alpha Juno. And so because you can get these crazy sounds by using pulse width modulation on the saw, you get these different sorts of sounds than any other analog synth could do. But for him, it was just a joke. He just sort of used a pitch envelope to do some sort of weird shit on a sound. There it is. That's that evil Reese bass sound. Yeah, just definitely awesome. Yeah, no one should have as many synths as I do, Jim, because it is a spiraling addiction. That is true. So you sort of like in the world of vintage Rolands, you have to always kind of pick what you want. So with the JX3P, for instance, you know, it's awesome. 2 DCOs is great, but you also, I mean, honestly, you get more movement from a sound like this than you'll ever get from the JX3P, even though it does have those 2 voices, because the PWM and the different shapes you get are so much more complicated. I love it so much. I love there's like kind of a whole category just for these sounds. Here's a kind of a different one. You get some sort of house music out of that sound. Oh, that is the fucking... That is awesome. Like, that is what I want. If I want to increase the pitch envelope, I can probably do so just by increasing it here. Increasing time 2 might do it also. That is the sound of the Juno. And what's a shame, and what I hope to dispel over the course of this stream, is that the Juno has to sound like this. It's really cool that it can sound like this, because no other synth can sound like this. But the Juno is actually a very competent analog synth on its own right. And I think in a weird way, its Hoover legacy has almost sort of stopped a lot of, you know, more traditional analog synthesists from getting into it. I mean, listen to this key sound. It's actually very cool. Really great 80s piano sound, analog piano sound, not a, you know, digital one at all. I didn't know that KMFDM actually put a real vacuum cleaner through distortion pedals. That's hilarious. Yeah, so you get a curve in all the waveforms. Yeah, so that's another feature, you could call it a feature of the Juno series. So that's true on the Juno 106 and the 6 and 60 as well, that actually when the high pass is off, its resonance is kind of like a 50 hertz boost. So there's a little bit of a bump down there. That reminds me more of something like a JX3P piano tone. So you can hear that's using the high pass filter, but if I bring that all the way down, we actually get a bump down there, which makes it a little thicker and a little bit nicer. It's kind of a little trick in there to get a little bit more boost in. We have a whole category dedicated just to strings. Getting big Twin Peaks vibes off of that one. The soundtrack preset of the JX8P was used in that. So if we want to increase the PWM, we can just do that by just moving that fader real quick. And you can hear now we are going all the way up to 0. Ryan, my son, welcome to the stream. How's it going, my friend? Can I get some scum in the chat for my boy? Well, maybe we don't want so much. We can control that rate and get kind of crazy with it. Sounds really good up here. As we get lower, it's just too much. But it is really beautiful. super, super cool. Is this a clone of a Juno or something? Well, Steve, welcome to the stream. It's actually a controller for a Roland Alpha Juno 2 that I have just off camera. The Alpha Juno 2 is a Juno in some sense. It is not a Juno 106. It's the next generation, came out in 1985, and I think is a superior synth to the Juno 106. Some people will argue with that. Without the knobs and faders, the Juno is a bitch to program with the alpha dial, but Retroaktiv has come along and saved the day and given us hands-on control of everything you can do with this. We can check out some brass tones real quick. Try another one. That one's a little stabby. It's kind of like a nice muted trumpet sound. Try another one. And this synth has such a beautiful resonance to it. And you can tell that I've had the aftertouch replaced on this key bed because a lot of them don't have such great aftertouch all of these years later. Yeah, so it is a programmer. Love some house cleaning. I did a lot of free labor when I was growing up at Amsky. Oh, I'm going to miss you doing Renfest. Looks cool, but why would someone want something that 90% of people don't own? But why would someone want something that 90% of people don't own? I don't know if I understand your question there. Why would you, let me flip that on you. Why would someone want something that 90% of people do have, like Serum? You know, I like having synthesizers that are cool and unique and can create sounds that no other synth can, and the Alpha Juno definitely is in there. If you use the aftertouch assign, you can have aftertouch control on any parameter on the synth. That's crazy. I didn't know that. So we'll have to do that later on. I mean, Alpha Juno. I still don't get what you're saying, C-Ray. I'm sorry. Let's try some more bells here before we jump into some actual synthing. A little quiet, but if you turn that up, you could get some really nice stuff. Almost a little bit of Game Boy action there. So it's not a Korg, but I'll take it. Yeah. Yeah, be a freak unique, not a synth sheep. How many people own these? Well, I mean, they did make a lot in the 80s. It was sort of, it was definitely a more budget synth at the time. It wasn't like the Jupiter 6, which came out, I think, a couple of years before. I don't know the actual numbers on that, but JDXI, everybody loves those guys. For sure, for sure. Anywhere here own the original PG-300? Well, that's also another really great way to control this, but I have to say the Retroaktiv one, you know, like this patch generator is a great example. Here's another thing. I can go to load a patch I've already, like you can save a patch, so all you have to do is go to assign, or I'm sorry, shift assign, and you can store or load a patch. In this case, I could pull up this patch here, which is sort of a different take on a sound you might have heard before. So you can save patches to this. You don't have to overwrite the patches in your Alpha Juno to do that, which is super cool because you only have like 64 of them or something like that you can overwrite. So again, does this work with anything other than a Juno? Well, you can actually use this as a generic MIDI controller. So say if you wanted to use a Retroaktiv MPG-50 with just a VST version of an Alpha Juno, you could do so. You could program this to work with any VST, for instance. You could get it to work as long as you can MIDI learn. You could use it for anything you want, honestly. Obviously, it's going to be most effective with something like an Alpha Juno or something like it, maybe a VST version or something like that. Yeah. So anyways, let's go back to a main, and we'll just go to patch gen, and we'll go to the last category and just go to init sound. And let's talk synthesis. Let's dig in a little bit. So we're just starting with a sawtooth. And you can hear, yeah, Redominator would be a good example. So the you'll hear in the background I have just a very small amount of Valhalla delay going on. Just to help it out a little bit, help it sound a little bit more modern. My alpha dial finger has arthritis. That's awesome. So real quick, why don't we just cover some of the things. We got a really nice sawtooth sound, but we actually have a few different ones. So I'm going to just start by turning everything off real quick. It already was off on the init sound, but just so we can hear that actually if I have it off and I'm hitting the keys right now, but you're not hearing anything, that's because you can actually shut either the sawtooth or the square wave off or on, and just like on a Juno, you can have them both on at the same time. So let's just do that real quick. And so what's great is that you've got this flexibility just even with having both of those oscillators on at the same time. It is all coming from one DCO though, so you're not going to get any detuning like you would on like a JX3P or something like that. So let's just check out the sawtooth again and move on, and we actually have these other sawtooth shapes. Hopefully you can see that on the stream, but this one kind of looks like it's got some jagged cuts in it. And it almost sounds like a little bit of a like a pulse wave mixed into a sawtooth wave or something like that. C-Ray, the problem with the Alpha Juno is it doesn't have any knobs or faders. So it's only got one knob, the alpha dial, which was sort of infamous for being Roland's first attempt at making, well, not their first attempt, but, you know, their first Juno that had, instead of the one knob or one fader to per function thing, was just using one dial to edit everything, and it was a real bitch to program. This makes it a fully functioning synth. I'm going to go to main 2 because you can actually see that as I move these, we've got these little things here. Again, the screen blinking is just because of this fucking camera. It's not because you don't see any blinking at all in real life. So let's just cover these real quick. Sawtooth. Then we got the jagged, kind of reminds me of like a table sawtooth. We've got one that is pulse width modulated. So we would just increase that. We can hear that we're getting those famous hoover type sounds off of that if played down low, but actually up high, it can really just sound like a detuned sawtooth oscillator. It does. Ramon, welcome to the stream. And then we also have this like really crazy, like many small partials making up a sawtooth. And this is all analog too. So what Roland was probably going for was trying to bridge the gap between analog synths and digital synths. To my knowledge, there's no other analog synth that does waveforms like this, where they are super bright, which is almost ugly on its own, but what ends up happening is that once you start bringing in that beautiful filter, you can get these really beautiful sounds. We'll disable that for now. You start getting more texture than you would get if it's just sawtooth and square waves. Is there aliasing on the highest notes with an open filter? Let's go ahead and go back to the sawtooth. We'll probably be able to hear it better. I'm not hearing any aliasing, and remember that when you are hearing this through YouTube, YouTube can actually introduce aliasing. Starsky Carr did a good video on this. Not a lot. I have heard that, you know, sometimes, well, one thing about aliasing too, guys, is something can alias even if it's analog, okay? So this is like sort of a myth that aliasing is a purely digital artifact. For instance, bucket brigade delays and choruses, guess what? They're closed systems, they cause aliasing. That's why a lot of the times they actually have sort of a darker filtered sound, and that's to cancel out aliasing. So part of that famous bucket brigade sound is the filter that's canceling out aliasing. So I'm not hearing any noticeable aliasing. That's pretty high up, and I'm not hearing anything, even if we use the really sharp wave. Might be a little tone up there. Might be hearing a little intermodular distortion. Hard to tell if that's the synth itself or something else, you know? And then we have this really weird sawtooth where we've got like kind of like 2 low partials and 2 high partials. So that's just the sawtooths there. Yeah, great deal for $600. You can get these things for $600 all day long. We also have a square wave here. Sounds great. We have a pulse wave. Also sounds super good. A little less biting than some of the other waves. And then we have pulse width modulation on the sawtooth. Sounds super lush and thick, just like you would expect a Juno to sound. What about the lowest note? I'm not hearing anything. You guys let me know if you hear any aliasing, but I'm not hearing anything down there. And then we also have a sub-oscillator with a bunch of different shapes. So real quick here. What you're hearing there is the sub-oscillator, but then we can also move it to a pulse wave. Sounds super clear, I agree with Jim. So that's not the sawtooth, so we could, or the square, so we could layer that with the square. To get a really thick sound. Sort of, and that's completely different than just your typical sub. Now we have, with these 2 little ratchets in there, right? And again, with the square wave. Getting just these crazy wave shapes that you wouldn't think are possible. Pulling the square out, now we are moving over to an even crazier sub-oscillator shape. That is electro as fuck. And then we have an octave down, and then 2. Or I'm sorry, an octave down further, and then a pulse wave version of that. So we could do kind of like your 2-octave thing. We could apply pulse width modulation to both the sawtooth and the pulse wave at the same time with a sub-oscillator, 2 octaves down. That sounds like this. We can add noise. So actually we can turn everything off and just have some noise here. But maybe we just want a little of that, bring the sub and the pulse width modulation back in. Can't you transpose below? Yes, I probably could. So why don't we just use the sub oscillator here? We'll turn the other stuff off, the noise off, so we're just hearing the sub os. On the Alpha Juno, there is a transpose knob, so we can go low. That's the lowest note right there. And shift and left will transpose down an octave as well on the actual thing. So I could just go shift and left, and that you can see on this, maybe it says down an octave, but I'm going to put it back up to regular octaves. But that's good enough for actually regular use. Yes, I think it does sound beautiful. Anyways, so why don't we go and use one of these kind of crazy sub-oscs. We'll use that 2 octave down. We'll use some pulse width on both. And you're starting to get that Hoover thing, right? You know, if you wanted to get that going. But that's just that sound. Up here, you know, you can get some kind of really beautiful analog stuff. So one thing about the Alpha Juno, how's it going, my Pinto? Welcome, my friend. Go ahead and subscribe to my boy One-Eyed Freakbot over on Twitch. So what we can do is we can select different envelopes for the amplifier here. We'll get to the filter in a second, but I want to talk about the amp first because we basically have just one envelope, but it's got a couple of tricks. So on the far left, it's just your envelope. So whatever's going on with the envelope, you get that sort of response. So now if I put on gate, that's what it was on before. You just get on and off, kind of like an organ. Right? But if I put over to envelope select, we get a little bit of a shape. Increase this. Right? But we also have the ability to have that, the next one here, the third slot is for that envelope, but with velocity, which is really useful. And then we can even do gate with velocity. I love dynamic, evocative pads with velocity, so that's a super cool thing. Nice little volume knob over here. Can I get some scum in the chat for Mighty Pinto while I intoxicate myself with this nice beer provided by my boy Luftrum? Alrighty. So, moving over to this 7-stage envelope. So these things are super, I love to see it. I love to see it in the chat, everybody. So 7-stage envelopes are a little intimidating to people sometimes, but I could break it down super simple for you. So why don't we turn everything off and you can hear we got nothing, right? The envelope is all the way up over here. Now, level 1 is the first level, and it's diagrammed out for you very beautifully. Again, the blinking is just the refresh rate of this camera. You can hear that we get these really wonderful sort of chiptune type sounds. And the time is the time it takes for that to fade in. So we can actually get a pretty long attack time here. It'll just cut out once it's done with that level 1 stage. I think that's what I'll do. That is a very long attack stage. That's crazy. Still going. It's still going. It's building. The anticipation. So that's a very long attack stage. Obviously, you don't have to have it go that long. The next stage would be what our decay level is. So level 2, or what the first sustain point would be. Time 2 is that decay. And then the way to trick this into being your standard ADSR is simply to have levels 2 and 3 being the same. So if I put those at about 50%, time 3 doesn't even matter in this case. We will have a... so I've basically put level 1 all the way up. Time 1, which is the attack, at 50%. Time 2, which is the decay at 50%. Levels 2 and 3 at the same 50% sustain point, no release, and this is what this sounds like. So you can see the sound comes in, and then it comes out. Mind Idiot, welcome! How's it going? Now, without any release, which is the time after I take my fingers off the key bed, it sounds a little unnatural, so I'm going to just bring that up to 50% too. So for me, when I'm synthesizing sounds with the MPG-50 and the Alpha Juno, I like to start with the envelope because you're only going to have one. And in general, I like sounds that, have some movement to the volume. Certain sounds, maybe not. Leads and basses, a lot of the times you can get away with having more of a just, punchy sort of, you can just use the gate and just have it all be, what's happening with the filter. But for me, playing D&D in about 20 minutes, I love that. Love D&D, my friend. So we could increase the decay there so that it takes a little longer to sustain down. Let's bring the sustain down, and then it will actually slowly build back up to level 3. So this is sort of like, you can think of level 2 and level 3 being two separate sustain stages, and time 3 is just the time it gets between those two. So why don't we make this extreme? So I'm going to bring level 2 all the way to 0, so it's going to cut all the way out, and then level 3 up to, like, let's say 75%, time 50%. You can see that the sound's going to kind of do this sort of a thing. Wow. Let's see if I can play notes, actually. That decay stage is long. Then it comes back. Yeah. So let's bring those down real quick, and you'll hear... we have this kind of like, wow, wow, like sort of sound. Right, so this is a way that you can create much more complex sounds than you would be able to do with sort of your typical Juno 106, or even, a lot of famous synths, Prophet 5, synths that people love, but these complex envelopes allow you to do a lot more. And we haven't even brought in the filter. So what I'm going to try to do is kind of play around with these a bit, and actually try, I'm going to bring level 3 up all the way, and try to match these so that we get a nice wop wop type sound to it. That was close, but let's bring those down. Okay, so time 1 needs to be longer than time 2 to get an equal pulse to it. That seems about right. We'll tighten them both up, though, a little bit, so we can get a little bit quicker motion, right? Oh, that's what it is. That's perfect. That's what I want. I want that double hit sort of thing, and I'm just going to bring level 2 up so it's a lot less extreme than that. Liked it a little bit extreme. There we go. So this is a good example of how you can create really interesting envelopes for, so far we have not gone near the filter, right? This is just oscillators, pulse width modulation, and cool envelopes with the amplifier. Now I'm going to just increase a little bit of aftertouch here, so I can give it a little boost in sound just by pressing down on the keys. I'll actually disable that. We'll mess around with that assign later and try to assign something like Rob was saying, something unique that you wouldn't think of necessarily to aftertouch. Moving right along, let's go over to the filter. So the same thing here, we can control different things. So we can start with the envelope following what the, the filter cutoff following the envelope we've already created, which we're not really going to hear until we bring the cutoff down and increase the envelope depth. I appreciate that, Adamski. Am I saying that right? Adam Sky? Adam Sky? Super cool. So it's following that shape, right? Hey, by the way, here's how the resonance sounds. You can get some really beautiful resonance type sounds out of this. Very smooth. People will say, for some reason, again, it's that I think a lot of people think this synth is more digital than it is. They'll say things like, oh, you can hear the MIDI stepping and stuff like that. Not really. Very smooth filter action. But what we can also do is we can invert that shape. I think we can invert it. There we go. I'm not hearing anything. Let's try moving the cutoff up. Yeah, this is so you can get some really weird shapes. So this is super interesting. This is actually driving the kind of working like a pluck now. So by dialing the envelope back, we're actually getting a little bit more of the sound. And when I take my fingers off of the keys, it goes upwards. Go ahead and try to make that sound with the Juno 106. Anyways, we can also do this with velocity sensitivity over here. Then we have this velocity sensitivity mode. I actually don't know exactly what it's doing. If someone does, go ahead and drop it in the comments and I'll pin that. Looks like it's just following the amount of velocity that I've got going into it. So anyways, I don't know how that's different from the velocity affecting the envelope, but that's a thing you can do. You can also key follow that or key track it. It just makes the cutoff track velocity, okay? Without the envelope, is that the idea? Yeah, you can hear that it's not, the filter isn't moving in relationship to the envelope. You can hear it's just moving by how hard I hit the notes. So the same notes quietly versus loud. Right, so that makes perfect sense. Anyways, we'll move it back to velocity sensitive envelope. We've got key following. What that does is just opens the filter the higher the note you play, which is super cool. And we also have aftertouch sensitivity. So this is super great also for expressive playing. Basically on the Alpha Juno and on the Roland D50, which by the way, I've done a masterclass on how to program the Roland D50. Well, I just lost my sound. I accidentally hit the button on the keyboard there. But we can Oh, I guess we could just start over real quick if we wanted to. So I could go to just the patch gen and hit enter, and we'll have a new sound. And we'll just get there, back there. How quickly can I get back there, guys, do you think? We'll just do one of these where you just move the faders all real quick. And set this over here, volume all the way up, set this over here, envelope all the way up, cut off to about there, and see how close we are. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? Oh, I could have hit manual too. So yeah, that's another thing you can do is, where is that manual button? I'm looking for it. But what you could do is actually have, put the synth in manual mode, which just tells the synth to listen to whatever every fader is at right now, currently, which is super useful. So, yes. So I believe that's correct, Adam. I'm going to say Adam for now. The Roland D50 used it too, and a lot of their other synths, the JD800, which I also have in the room, and kind of everything that came afterwards. I feel like the mid to late 80s were a time where synth designers were trying to figure out ways to compete with the Yamaha DX7, which did have more complex, I think 6-stage envelopes, if I'm correct. And so just looking in the room here, the DW8000 has complex envelopes, 6-stage, I think. SQ80 has 6-stage, Roland D50, JD800, Oberheim Matrix might, couple of other ones, SY99 certainly does, Korg DSS1 certainly does. So it's sort of a thing. They were like trying to figure out how to create more interesting sounds to make people still buy analog synths. We live in an analog renaissance where everybody is obsessed with analog synths, but in the late 80s, no one had ever heard digital synthesis before, and it was like, oh my God, that's the hotness. And people forgot about analog synths for a time. But yes, if you hit manual on this, it just works as a one knob per function. What you see is what you get with the synthesizer. Time variant envelope, time variant filter, just to be clear. Well, the D50 does have time variant filters as well. Yeah, and then we can add some aftertouch, bring the cutoff down, and you can hear I can control that filter just with the aftertouch. Right? But let's bring that up a bit and maybe just bring in a little bit of sound to it. I'll bring this back to main real quick here. I don't want too much, but... Yeah, super cool stuff that you can do. And then we also have a chorus. So this comes with an analog chorus, and it's fully variable. Unlike on the Juno 106, famously only has 2 buttons, right? So with this, we can control the rate from very slow to a little bit faster. All the way to where it's kind of a little crazy. If you wanted to take it that far, you can. Obviously, in the middle is probably a good thing. Really beautiful analog chorus. Some people say it's not as thick or as lush as the Juno chorus or the Juno 106 chorus. 60 chorus, all of that stuff. I don't know. That's up for you guys to decide. I don't know if any of you in the chat or if you're watching this video in the future, if you have a Juno 660 or 106, if you'd care to comment on whether or not you think the chorus is as good. I have a JX3P that has a chorus on it, and I think they are very similar. Although I do think the JX3P sounds a little bit more stereo to my ears than this one does. I don't know if it doesn't mix in as much of the chorus signal or something. That might be part of what's going on to create that. So that's super cool. Let's see. What else could we talk about? We could talk about the LFO. So the LFO could be... I feel like the 3P chorus is noisier. I have like a super minty JX3P. I don't know how I got so lucky as to get it. It was like the craziest synth buy I ever got. And it doesn't sound noisy to me, at least in terms of if I take your meaning that a lot of 80s chips tend to get noisy. So like a lot of Juno 106s actually have pretty annoying chorus. You can hear the in the background. But maybe what you mean is like into the way it modulates the sound or something. Maybe that's what you mean by noisy. I'm not sure because I'm not a scientist when it comes to this. The 106 chorus is fixed to a sweet spot. The balance between chorus, wet, and dry coming out of the bed are different. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because to me this isn't that stereo. I can turn it off real quick. I mean, you notice the difference, but I feel like when I do it on the JX3P, it like rips open the left and right speaker. A difference, really trivial difference in my opinion. So we could increase the amount the LFO is going on. So this is what that sounds like. I'm going to disable the envelope right now so you can just hear the LFO. And you can hear that we actually do get into audio rate. Yeah. Nothing wrong with some typing errors. You can get some pretty crazy sounds just by doing that. Also, we have a delay. So let's check that out real quick. So without the delay, the sound's pretty harsh right away. Pretty much unusable, right? Except for sound effects. Let's see how it sounds if I play a beautiful fucking chord. How long it takes for it to come in. We're still waiting for the LFO to make its appearance. So yeah, you can hear that everything with this is crazy how much time you can get out of some of this stuff. Anticipation. There it is. Yeah, that's disgusting. So that's a very long time you can wait, but you could set it to a much more fun value. We can add a delay to that. So what I like to do with LFOs a lot is apply it as the envelope has lost its interesting part, right? I prefer the sound of envelopes to LFOs because nothing in nature repeats cyclically like that. But once the envelope's done doing its thing, a lot of the times it's nice to have some sort of movement in the sound. So I'm going to turn the LFO off and the envelope up. So here we're back to our complex envelope. Sounds gorgeous. We can bring in the LFO, but with some delay, and so it'll only come in once that envelope is over. So there it came in kind of quick, so I'm going to nudge it back a little further. That's perfect, right? So the LFO doesn't start making sound until the envelope shape is finished. I have seen that before. I am not sure exactly if that is, when you say from the internet, I'd like to know what the source is on that, because I have yet to see I feel like there's a lot of rumor mongering around the Alpha Juno, so I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm just saying I need to see some really good facts on that, because what you should consider is that digital technology of the time, like consider the Korg DW8000, pulse width modulation was not possible because you're talking about PCM samples is how they created digital oscillators in 1985. And in fact, even the greatest wavetable synthesizer from the 80s, technically maybe even the 70s, the PPG, why am I blanking on it? The PPG wavetable synth that's so famous. What is it called? What's it fucking called? Someone tells me. But even that couldn't interpolate. So even if it was to take samples of a square wave moving through the different stages of that, it was actually just different slices of that wavetable. So there was no interpolation possible at this time. And you can hear with the synth that there is very smooth pulse width modulation, which I don't think would be possible with a digital oscillator in 1985. I'd be happy to be wrong, but I do not believe I am currently. The Wave PPG, thank you very much. It is the Wave. So yes, I was getting confused because I was thinking of the Waldorf microwave, which is the rack mount version Waldorf put off in 1989, I think. There was a bunch of different versions of the PPG Wave. So that's why the timing on when it came out is a little confusing to me, because there was like some kind of prototype versions. So anyways, I think that there is not one, even my glorious SQ80, I think can do something like pulse width modulation. That's from 1987, but I don't think there's really any true way to do pulse width modulation with a digital synth until at least 1987, when Roland came out with the D50. That would be my understanding. Again, I'd be happy to be wrong, but I think a lot of the rumors that showed up with the Alpha Juno came from the fact that it can sound digital, right? So this is a nice warm analog type sound. Not type sound, analog sound. Right? Super cool. Right? But we'll make some more sounds in a bit that are a little different, which, by the way, guys, this would be a good point. I think I've covered... Oh, by the way, yeah, high pass filter. We could take all of the low end out if we wanted. And then, I'm sorry, I forgot who it was who mentioned it. Go ahead and raise your hand in the chat. But that the high pass filter actually creates a little bump at the low end. Right? If you put it all the way down, whereas at 1, it's actually flat. Like, that's a flat sawtooth wave. Which is probably where you want it as far as, like, in a mix is concerned, but we're synth heads, so we're going to want a lot of bass. It just sounds so warm and beautiful, and especially because the resonance does remove some of that low end. It's nice to be able to put that back in with the high pass filter. Yeah, super cool, and very, very authentically analog. As far as I'm aware, again, I'm not trying to say anything, Euro DJ, against you, because there's a lot of information on the internet about the Alpha Juno that says one way or the other. That was you who mentioned it, Adam. Yes, so that's a thing that's true, not just with the Alpha Juno, but also with the Juno series. Have I missed anything so far? Oh, you can do pitch shaping with the envelope. That's how I did that with the Hoover earlier in the stream. You've got glide. You've got noise. We could put some noise in here. Could be nice for making certain sounds. Actually, I'm curious right now if we turned... Well, let's go ahead and I'm going to go to Shift, which is just hold the button down, and assign, and then store a patch. And I'm going to go to, I've made a couple of patches already. I'm going to go to a blank one, and I'm going to just write in something real quick. Let's call it wow. And this is going to take me a second. This is my least favorite part of old synths, is doing this type of bullshit. Let's see. This is why keyboards are good. wow. We'll just call it wow, like that. And and then press enter, and now that patch is stored, right? So now we can pull that up. If I go back to strings, I'm sorry, I need to go, what is it? Assign, main, shift assign, and we're gonna go to load, enter, and I can load strings. So this is the patch from the beginning of the stream, right? But we could also load what we just made, right? We got some noise in there. I currently have a Casio HD 6000, I believe. I did a stream on it. Up for sale on my Reverb store, by the way. If anybody wants it, go ahead. Shift and chorus equals load. So you hold shift and the chorus button, and that pulls you to the load page immediately. Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it. Should have memorized that before the stream. The Casio HD 6000 is a super cool analog digital hybrid. However, the interface and the fact that it has amnesia without that RAM card for me was the reason I decided that I wanted to sell it. I think someone who's really clever could get a MIDI programmer and set it up and make it awesome. I need things like this to be able to make stuff happen. I'm not good at doing that on my own. I'm not super, my knowledge doesn't extend that deeply. But it's a super cool synth, worth checking out. I just wanted a synth that I was able to program on the fly, like this one. Now, what I want to do is, we've got a cool sound, but fuck it, let's just start over, right? So I'm going to go to patch gen, init sound, press enter, right? And we're back to just a beautiful sawtooth wave. But what I want to do is actually turn that off, both of the oscillators off, but just turn the noise on real quick and see if we can create a sort of MS-2000 Ice Fields type patch by increasing the resonance and the key tracking. It kind of sounds like you can get there. You'll notice that, and this is the one sort of dig that is true about the Alpha Juno, is that the the filter doesn't go fully resonant. Having said that, I don't know that I necessarily care. I'm going to put this into velocity sensitive mode here. Go ahead and do that. For now, we'll just leave it like that, add some release. And what we'll do is we'll add the square wave real quick and try to tune with the cutoff to that frequency. See, I see, this is the thing that I don't get. I'm sure there's a good reason why people want it to get like super resonant. I actually like filters that don't get super resonant. I mean, the most expensive synth in the world, the Yamaha CS80, does not have a fully resonant filter. I love the Korg Poly 6, it's amazing, but you turn the resonance up to like 3 or 4 and it's already screaming, right? And I'm like, well, what am I really going to use that for? So anyways, what I want to do is set the cutoff frequency to something that sounds like it's in tune with the oscillator. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's great. That's pretty wonderful. And then we could take that out, and you can hear that we still kind of have that sound with just the noise and the filter. Right? It's not 100%, right? But it's there. So what we could also do is maybe just use the sub-level 1. See what happens if we do that. Let's tune it to that note. Seems like 44 is the value I'm looking for. That's that's beautiful. That's very, very beautiful. What we could do is we could put the voltage controlled amplifier into gate mode, and we could use the envelope to affect, if we just add a little attack here, we could have it affect the filter here. So this is kind of how you get that ice field sound, right? And actually you could invert it to get that sound, right? But you lose the release, which is so beautiful. But really just a beautiful sound. For me, I just wanted to show that's how you could do that with the envelope, but I'm going to disable that and use the amplifier here and put it over here. Actually kind of sounded nice with a little, like that little pop at the front. Little attack there, right? It's like a noisy Rhodes piano. That is absolutely gorgeous, and it's not possible with something like a Juno 106. It's absolutely something that you can only do, and you could technically program it on an Alpha Juno, but without this Retroaktiv MPG-50, it would take forever, and you guys saw how quickly we got there with just a couple of quick moves. We were able to program this gorgeous sounding, noisy Rhodes pad. Just awesome, and you can do it very quickly with a Retroaktiv MPG-50. So super cool. I think that alone should sell anybody who's thinking about looking at, maybe you want to get a beginners, or I mean, and I hate to say the word beginners because the Alpha Juno is fully featured, but the only reason I say beginners is because you can get these synths for so cheap. You can get an Alpha Juno for less than $700. I think there's one on Guitar Center right now for $649, right? And get one of these MPG-50s. I would rather have an MPG-50 in an Alpha Juno than most of the modern synths that are out there nowadays. Modern synths are going to have some features that this doesn't, you know, obviously reverb, stuff like that. But when you have a vintage synth, the value is going to hold or go up, actually. And another thing is that when you have a vintage synth, you have that like classic sound, as opposed to, you know, a modern synth. No matter how amazing it is, it's always kind of like that question marks in your head. You're like, you know, is this as good as the vintage stuff? Well, you know, you can. My message is always, you can get the vintage stuff so much more reasonably than people realize a lot of the times. A lot of times people get into synths and they look and they see the Mini Moogs and the CS80s and the Matrix 12s and all of those synths go for so much. You're like, okay, I could never afford that, right? But you absolutely can here. There's 16 chord memories, plus it has chord mode where you can make any chord on the fly. Yeah, it's crazy how many more features are in the MPG-50 than you get out of just your typical Alpha Juno setup. So that's a really great sound. While I am saving this, Shift, assign, store, enter, and I'm going to just move this over here and call it something. But while I'm doing that, we'll call it Ice Fields, actually. Why not? But while I'm doing that, guys, can you go ahead and do me a favor and in the chat, what kind of sounds would you like to hear, and see if we can make it and how quickly we can make it with the MPG-50 and the Alpha Juno. So if you guys would be awesome enough to say, hey, I'd like to see you try to make this type of sound real quick, I would love to do that. I love giving people the opportunity to see what can be done with a synthesizer. So I'm almost done putting it in. So please get them in the chat for sure. And by the way, guys, if you want one of those sweet vulture skulls next to your name in the chat, you can hit the join button. It's the best way to help support me do this. Supporting me do this. I try to, it's hard to take off work every Wednesday and make it possible to hang out with you guys and check out a new synth every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We do that, by the way. Next week, we're going to be looking at a vintage MS-20 and doing some patching tutorials. So looking at what are some cool patches that could be done with that synthesizer. So, but the best way to help me out, other than liking and subscribing to the video, is actually to join and become a member. Get a little vulture skull next to your name. You can see 40 Thieves and Jim and Vulture Mom and a few of the other people in the chat have it. Super cool. And yeah, that would be a lot of fun. All right, let me catch up with that. Oh, and by the way, you get all of the Vulture Culture music for free. So that's the thing. Let's see. If you tap Shift while typing in a name, it'll alternate between space A1. Makes it faster. Man, that's so awesome. Rob, I have to say, I am shocked at how well thought out this programmer is. All the things that you've come up with. And I have 3 of them. As soon as that DSS1 programmer comes out, I'm going to be the first customer to buy one. So yeah, it's just really incredible. Josh Patrick Garrett says the cello, so you got in first. No, we are not giving out any free controllers. I can give out free nudes of myself, but not free controllers. 909 bass drum, and we got some new DW8000 firmware. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so we'll start with cello. Patch gen, init sound, enter. Okay. And for a cello, we could use some pulse width modulation, right, guys? But we don't want to go too high. One thing that is frustrating about the Alpha Juno and Juno series is that you can't blend between the 2 oscillators. And to me, the square always sounds a little too loud. But the square and the saw on a slow PWM sounds nice. Let's add some noise because a cello is going to have some noise at the top, right? So that's just the raw oscillator sound. Let's go to the VCA and put it into velocity sensitivity mode. Right? So we can add a little attack. It's actually amazing how quickly we're starting to get that sort of violin cello sound just by adding some attack. Right? We're getting there. Let's add some release. Not too much, though. I actually thought it sounded good. Yeah. Oh, Ryan, you get all the nudes first. So anyways. Oh, so it's interesting because of the way I have it set up. Let's just set the... L2, L3, and L2, T3, and L3 all to about the same. Just kind of nice low. This is also sort of, yes, it's too bad. By the way, I'm just working with the amplifier right now to get it kind of in the shape. We'll get to the filter in a second, or we could do that now. Right? I was just, I like starting with the amplifier. I know that's kind of counterintuitive. A lot of times synthesis go oscillator, filter, amplifier, right? It's just, you gotta do it that way. But for this synth in particular, I like to get the VCA figured out first. We'll just put the VCF into velocity sensitive envelope mode 2, and we'll add that in. Maybe not even full envelope depth. Let's try it without the square real quick. I like it with it just to help compete with that noise a bit. Key following is important for this type of sound to make it sound natural as well. A little bit less motion with the filter I think will be good. Anyways, part of what we need to sell this sound to is going to be actually using the LFO on the digitally controlled oscillator to add vibrato, right? That's a famous thing when you hear a violin player. They make it cry by the vibrato, or in this case, cello. That's very extreme, but if we bring that back. Poly 800 filter is also so deep, maybe even deeper. I would believe it. This is a very bright, brassy filter. Let's add some delay though, that way it doesn't come in right away. Well, let's try it without the noise for a bit. Little aftertouch in there. Sounds better without the noise. Yeah, so that's the thing. I wish you could make the noise only affect so much, right? Yes, so I believe the key tracking's at 100%, but I'll bring the cutoff down just a little bit further. Yeah, I think that is better, Adam. So like a little organ section or a cello section. We're sort of, LFO needs to be a tad faster. A little bit more delay. yeah, we're in the neighborhood for sure. I agree. I've got a Roland SH2 over there, and that's my favorite layout of maybe any synth that I have. I think they really hit it out of the park, and I was like, okay, so what synthesizer has the same layout as the SH2, but that's polyphonic? Well, that's what the first one is. The Jupiter 6. So not planning on having any one of those anymore. Yeah. Yeah, the LFO sounds better there. In this case, because you can't dial in a little bit of noise, by adding too much noise, you sort of end up with like a flute type sound. Man, that's even there, it's too much. Yeah, so I think the noise off. Try it with the square off. I think I like it with just, I have the square in there to sort of compete with the noise, but I think without the noise, I prefer it with just the sawtooth wave. I think that really gives it, that it sells that cello type sound. Very subtle adjustments here now. All right, I'm happy with that. So shift, assign, store, enter, and we'll go over to here. And then what was it that, how do I do it? Tap shift while typing enable, alternate between space, AA, and that makes it a lot faster. That's a really good tip. All right, so we'll go to C, E, L, if I remember where my letters are. All right, and the next one is an 808 kick drum, which we can do very easily. Element O. Oh, I thought that was in. There we go. And then, nice. Cool. So that's my rough analog, of course. You know, if you want to get really authentic violins, you're probably going to go more for like a sample, but yeah, I'm good with that. That's about in the neighborhood, right? Try narrowing the pulse. Oh, I see. So sawtooth on, I'm asking you, plus a narrower pulse sound. Let's go ahead and try that. So pulse waveform. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, I love that. So let's go ahead and go shift, assign, store, enter, and then just save over that again, because I actually think that sounds better with that pulse wave. Yeah, sounds good. I love that. Thank you very much. So we'll save that, and then we will go to patch gen init sound, press enter, and we are back to a sawtooth wave. So we're going to do a kick drum real quick, but while I do that, this is a great time to post to the chat if you'd like me to make any other sounds. Just let me know. I don't know if I missed anybody. I think Jim said good string sound, so maybe we'll do that too. Let's see if I missed anything else. What's a trip is the synth has a brilliance function in addition to cutoff and resonance, which none of my other synths have. Right. Yeah, so one of the things that they implemented in the Alpha Juno, which I think was clever, but not really as useful when you have all the knobs and faders in front of you. But they implemented a way for you to be able to, I think there was brilliance and a couple of other features, so you could change the sound without editing too much, right? They made it so it's like an easy way to modify a sound that they had programmed into the Juno. So yeah, something like that. Have a great night, Autumn. I love you very much. All right, so we don't have a triangle or sine wave. Next best thing is going to be a square wave. We could use the sub, but that really wouldn't be a typical sort of sound. So let's go ahead and transpose down. So we're going to start with that sawtooth, or I'm sorry, square wave all the way down there. And what we're going to do to get it to be a sine wave is just lower the cutoff while having key tracking all the way up. Right? Super easy. Right? Now what we'll do is we'll apply to the envelope a fast decay. So this is a slow decay. Really, really slow. And I see you, Josh, with the plucked bass guitar. Right? But that's not what we want for an 808. I just wanted to see how slow it could go. We want a pretty fast one. I mean, that's a pretty good 808 right there. Right? Not bad. If we wanted to add a little bit more attack, we could try by adding some noise. Not really too much of a difference. By increasing the envelope depth, so it's the same thing but to the filter, we can get more into gabber territory. Where we're almost hearing like... Yeah, envelope mod on the filter in VCO. Right? I think that's good though, nice and tight. Right, that, and then maybe a little bit less. We add the noise in now. We get a little bit more high end, right? Oh, you asked for a 909 bass drum. Sorry, my bad. Well, the idea is about the same. The difference being that with a 909, it's usually just a shorter. Sort of sound like that. More or less similar. See, we're getting a little bit higher pitch here. Yeah, this is the right direction. Yeah, I mean, that's more or less where you're going to go. A slightly lower main tone, sure. You can go all the way to where we're not hearing anything, so. Right, if we apply the envelope to the VCA, we can get really short. Let's see, it would be nice to have a slightly lower main. Oh, well, I was actually picking the note of the, a G, a low G is an 808. But if you go lower here, D, C, somewhere around here. We get sort of into techno territory. Right? You can also use this to make toms and stuff. Disco toms. Right? So those are those types of things. If you want to do that with this synth, it's possible. You could do some other stuff to it, but I mean, that's more or less what you're going to get. Let's see what else we got here. good string sounds, and then a bass guitar. So I'm going to go to patch gen, init sound, enter, generating tone, and we're back to our sawtooth. Rick Astley toms, yes. Yeah, the nice disco toms. So to do strings, we're just going to do some pulse width modulation again. I don't mind them being a little slow like that. I'm going to use this like weird shaped sub oscillator for this. Just use a different kind of brightness to the sound as opposed to just your standard sub. That's your standard sub. Here's the one I want to use. Right, you get those extra harmonics in there. Again, we'll start by going over to the amplifier and making sure the envelope depth is all the way up and adding some attack and release. Yeah, so that's good. I'm going to bring out a little of the low end for strings. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know if I love that. And then apply the envelope as well to the filter. We'll apply some resonance. I'm liking that nice fatness there. With the high pass filter. I like it nice and fat. Can't get me away from that thickness. Sounds really good, really warm. A little bit less resonance. Yeah, really good. Not bad right there. Lots of, there's a lot of free Alpha Juno patches. By the way, if you buy one of these, you also get the Espen Croft patches with it, which we could go into all of that. But that would be a different stream for a different day. We could just cover those sounds, and that would be an easy 2 hours right there. So what was the last one? Bass line, plucked bass guitar. So I'm happy with this one. So I'm going to go ahead and assign it, or shift assign, store, patch, enter, and we'll go to 6, and then we will go and call this one, what do we call this one? Warm strings. Why don't we go with that? So boom, boom. And if anybody else has any requests, we will do them. Warm. Oh, that's so good. I love that tapping shift thing. That just made my quality of life so much better. Oh man, I fucked it up though. Press the wrong button. And then strings. Go ahead here. Strings, we're getting there, guys. I'm not smart, but that's helping. Oh, it's so fast. I really don't hate it now. I hated it before, but now I don't hate it. Warm strings. Whew. That's in there. Doing an alpha patch off any day of the week. Oh, that's big, bold words there. so we have overwritten that patch. Now we can go to patch in init sound, generating tone, main, and we're back to a sawtooth. An evolving pad with chorus. Okay, we'll do that one too. Real quick, baseline sound. Going to put the envelope into non-velocity responsive, or we could do either way. Velocity responsive. But I'm going to leave the VCA in gate mode. I don't mind that. That way we can control the envelope. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find that like sound, that warm, round bass sound. Nice thick low end down here. Put key tracking to about 50% on this one. Right? Sounds pretty good. Using all waveforms on the pad. Yes, I will do that. One of the things that also helps with the envelope is to put it to about 50% when you're doing a bassline sound. So we will add some decay, sustain, release to the sound. So what I'm doing here is just shift left, so we can shift left to drop that down an octave. Or even another octave. Oh, whew, that's where it is. We can just control the decay time if we want it really tight. Wow, that's a great bass line, you know. I mean, that's thick. Well, that literally just rattled my my phone off of the synth. We can bring that up a bit if we want, carefully. We get a different sound with these different shapes. Definitely like it with just that sawtooth. That's a great bassline sound. By the way, the Alpha Juno was used to do the bass on Madonna's Vogue, if anybody was interested. So we'll just go ahead and save this real quick. Shift assign, store, and we're going to call this one... We'll call this one Thick Bass. We like it thick in this house. We like it thick. Boom, boom, boom. Thick. So helpful to have that functionality there. Thick bass, enter. Boom. Patch stored. Oh, yeah. Narrow pulses. Let's go ahead and try that real quick. We'll just do a narrow pulse, same thing. Oh, that one is good. I like that one actually, maybe even a little bit better. Versus... Let's try it with this, like, kind of pulsy sawtooth thing. That's a very cool... like that kind of warmth to it. Lower the cutoff a little bit more there. Pretty bassy. Guess you could do it with both, right? That's even thicker. That's a great bass line sound. So we'll go with that. And then he said, let's do a nice evolving pad with chorus. So that'll be a fun one to end on for the night. So one more time, patch gen, init sound, enter, generating tone, main. Back to this. Right? We're going to do pulse width, or let's do the craziest fucking shit that we've got. Let's do this crazy pulse wave. So we have like crazy harmonics going on. We'll use the pulse width modulation on a square. A little bit of fatness in there. We'll add some sub. Go an octave down so we have some craziness going on. That pulse wave is like drills into your fucking skull. But what we're going to do is use the envelope here to tame a lot of that. So we're going to add some attack, level 1 all the way up, decay down. Here we go. Release, sustain, you know, something like this. So we'll see what happens with this sound. Crank that up. Real nice there. Let's bring the cutoff up. Let's apply the same stuff to the VCA, by the way. Maybe not quite as high, a little less resonance. Fuck it, all the resonance. A little less resonance. Aftertouch all the way up on the filter. What do I think of John Carpenter's Lost themes? So I don't know, but I know that John Carpenter used a lot of SQ80 on his stuff. Rob says, slow LFO PWM and super slow LFO on VCF and slow chorus always sounds sweet for pads. Okay, so slow LFO PWM, right? So we've got that going. We'll add some VCF LFO, but we'll go nice and slow with it. Let's go ahead and just see what the LFO is doing first. And then we'll just add enough to it. To about 20, I can do that. I'll speed it up a little bit here. We're getting there. Let's go ahead and load, put the chorus on with a nice slow rate. add the cutoff up a tad. Whoa, a little too much. Love how that analog filter is just eating up resonance. Yeah, I feel like we're in the ballpark. I don't know if anybody has anything else they'd like to add to that sound, but it can distort slightly. Yeah, we're getting a little of that, so dial that back. That's an interesting thing, that the chorus can distort. That does sound cleaner. Yeah, sounds really, really thick, and I love how the filter is picking out those sing-song harmonics, right? GX series does it too. Interesting. Very interesting. I didn't realize that. One of these days, I'm going to get a JX10, get a retroactive programmer for that too, but right now the synth room is so full that it's pretty hard to say that I'm going to, do that right away. So anyways, guys, I think that's a pretty good demonstration of what's possible with this synthesizer. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you guys tonight. Big shout outs to Rob, first for creating these incredible programmers, but also for hanging out. A lot of fun. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. A lot of fun. We do this every Wednesday night at 9. We're always checking out synths. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, chorus BBD has limited headroom. It would be nice to hear a live jam with looping sequencing sometime. Well, I've done that. If you look on the channel, actually the best way to help the channel is just to look in the first link below in the description. It says watch all synthesizers or something like that. Check out all my synth videos. And in there, I actually have a looping vintage synth jam that I did recently that's got big sort of blush response Vangelis type vibes to it. Seems to me that the filter gives even more harmonics in chord mode. We'll have to check that out another time. That sounds like a lot of fun. Hopefully everybody had a lot of fun. Absolutely, Joshua. It was a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. I love doing it. It's a lot of fun. Get some sleep. Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate you for everything you do. And keep me posted when you're coming out with that DSS1 programmer. I'm really excited about that. Spaceman on Earth, you just got here. Yep, finishing it up for tonight. But as always, we'll be back next week. Next week will be the Korg MS-20, doing some patching with that, buddy. Just with the synth. I don't have a bunch of euro. The bleeding somewhere when it comes to my finances. I am not sponsored by anybody, so all the vintage synths in this room are paid for out of my insanity budget. So, Mighty Pinto, love you, brother. You guys all have a wonderful night, and I will see you next week. Stay safe. Love and light, bitches.